By the time that superhero cinema was reaching new creative and commercial heights in the late 2000s, X-Men was sitting on the sidelines. For a film franchise set at a school, there was a bit of poetic irony at play, but for the movie executives at 20th Century Fox, it had to be maddening. Despite playing a pivotal role in the ascent of the superhero genre with its original trilogy, there were no new X-Men films from 2006 to 2011, long enough for a 14-year-old to now be in their second year of college. And yes, we're aware that X-Men Origins Wolverine was released in 2009, but that's a story for another season. Since the release of the disappointingly dull X-Men: The Last Stand, the MCU was well on its way to building the ground floor of its towering interconnected universe. Christopher Nolan was 2/3 of the way through his Batman trilogy, and the X-Men were nowhere to be found. That changed in the summer of 2011, when the X-Men franchise would charge into the future by revisiting the past. Welcome to Superhero Cinema Club, an in-depth exploration of the history of superhero films. I'm Mark Schiff, and joining me as always, it's the Emma Frost to my Sebastian Shaw. It's Mike Carnes.
You son of a bitch. I knew you were going to do that
one. I mean, honestly, you do look a lot like her, and you have huge boobs, Mike. I mean, I don't know. We don't do video, but...
It's not just that. I've got the January Jones hair going on, too. The big 50s wig kind of thing.
It's actually uncanny to use an X-Men word, like how much you look like her. It really is. Today, we're going to be talking about the fourth film in the X-Men series and the first entry into the prequel quadrilogy. We're talking about 2011's X-Men First Class. As always, you can stream all of the X-Men films on Disney+. We would recommend that you kind of get caught up, revisit it, and enjoy the conversation, but you don't have to. I know a lot of psychos out there. I've heard from people, Mike, they don't even watch these movies, and yet they listen to our podcast.
What? I don't recommend that.
Raw dogging it.
That's one way
I respect you, our raw dog audience. Let's go. So this was the first superhero prequel film, as far as I can account. And it kind of got me thinking, Mike. Prequels, in my mind, kind of got kicked off with the Star Wars prequel trilogy and has since kind of become its own sort of reliable subgenre, I would say. So many prequels. Most of them, honestly, aren't that great. It kind of almost feels like, in the same way that back in the day, like sequels were looked at as, oh, you're just doing a retread. It almost feels like you're really scraping the bottom of the barrel if you have to do a prequel. That being said, there are a handful of good ones out there, and I'm curious, what is your favorite prequel?
Well, favorite prequel, could that be something like Godfather 2? Because that's like a sequel and a prequel kind of at the same time. You know, we split the story between past and future.
I'm going to call it. Yes, it can be.
Okay.
That's a really good shout out. Wow. I hadn't even thought of that one.
I'm going Godfather 2 then. That's the best prequel / continuation of a story of all time.
Excellent choice there, Mike. Like I said, that didn't even cross my consciousness. To me, I would say the honorable mention is Rogue One from Star Wars / Andor. I mean, Andor is obviously a TV show, so that doesn't really count exactly in this exercise, but I do like the way that Rogue One leads directly into the first Star Wars. I think it's kind of cool. Like, it's actually the final moment is like the first scene of Star Wars, so that's kind of dope. But for me, I got to go with the Planet of the Apes trilogy. Ooh. I know you're a big fan of those films as well.
Yes.
Rise of the Planet of the Apes, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and War for the Planet of the Apes.
That's right.
Okay. Awesome films. Really good computer animation. Some of the best computer animation, honestly, ever, I would say. And really good. All three of them, each one kind of is better than the last. I really like those Planet of the Apes films.
Can't wait for the next one. Number 5 coming out soon, hopefully.
Is that right? Are they doing another one?
They have confirmed, but the director has to go do the Zelda live action movie first.
Interesting.
And then he's coming back to do this.
All right.
If you were going to disqualify Godfather 2, I did have a backup prepared. And I think that it must go mentioned because it's quite a masterpiece of a film. Furiosa, the Mad Max prequel to Fury Road, is absolutely stunning film. I know it didn't get as much love as Fury Road did when that came out, but that's just because Fury Road was a freaking masterpiece. And like, if we didn't have that movie, we would have thought Furiosa was a masterpiece as well. I think that that's a great lead into the Mad Max story. It's visually just absolutely drop dead stunning and gorgeous to look at, just like Fury Road is, and has some incredible action set pieces. So that's my other pick for best prequel.
Great call. You love to hear it. Maybe a film we could be revisiting potentially in upcoming recommendations, but we'll see. So today we're going to get into, as we mentioned, X-Men First Class. And as always, we're going to start with our Tale of the Cape, details around the film's production and release. So X-Men First Class was released May 3rd, 2011 in the United States. Mike, one thing I thought was kind of interesting was this was actually sandwiched in between two MCU films. It was sandwiched between Thor, which was released on May 6th, and Captain America, the First Avenger, which was released on July 19th. I'm curious, if you don't know off the top of your head, which one of these three Marvel adaptations made the most money? What is the rankings on all three?
I don't have a good guess. I'm just going to listen to my gut here and go with Captain America, the First Avenger. I feel like there's maybe some hype around that leading into Avengers, and Chris Evans was a little bit of a bigger star, than Chris Hemsworth for Thor. People didn't really care about this X-Men, I think, when it came out, so I'm going to go with my boy Cap.
That would have been my guess as well. I was actually a little surprised by the results. Thor,
Wow, okay.
$449 million total gross. Yeah, it did really well. I think it did super well overseas because, in Europe, it's going to play a little better. You know what's not going to play in Europe as well? A movie about Captain America fighting Nazis. That only made $370 million.
Oh, only?
Yeah, a meager $370 million. X-Men First Class, $353 million. So it actually was the lowest grossing out of those three films, but did pretty well. It was a budget of $140 to $160 million. So I don't think anyone's really complaining about the results.
Was it still the case with diminishing returns where every X-Men movie made more money than the last one? Did this make more money than Last Stand?
It did not, Mike. X-Men The Last Stand made $460 million. So yeah, this was significantly lower, but I know Fox was still pretty happy given the fact that things kind of went entirely off the rails with X-Men Origins Wolverine. That did make a lot of money, but it was just such a total disaster creatively that I think they were just happy to kind of get the larger franchise back on track with this one. As far as getting this film going, a lot of writing stories with this one. So Zach Penn, who was a writer on X3, had the first crack at the script. That all fell through. Then Sheldon Turner, who was actually a co-writer of my beloved Up in the Air, co-starring George Clooney, was tapped for a Magneto prequel film. He pitched that movie as The Pianist Meets X-Men, and it would have been directed by David Ayer, who went on to direct The Suicide Squad. That also fell through, but Bryan Singer used that script for his treatment. They were trying to get Bryan Singer back. Things didn't really work out. He had to go make Jack the Giant Slayer, a movie that no one remembers at this point. And the two of them, Sheldon Turner and Bryan Singer, get story by credit as a result of their early passes on it. So keeps going, pass it on to a new writing crew, Ashley Edward Miller and Zach Stens. Interestingly enough, Mike, these gentlemen were also co-writers of Thor. So those dudes had a really big summer of 2011.
Good year for them, yeah.
Yeah. And then those guys did another pass. And then finally, once Matthew Vaughn was brought on to direct, he did the final pass of the screenplay with his writing partner, Jane Goldman, which is why we end up with 6 different credited writers on X-Men First Class. So as I just mentioned, Matthew Vaughn was brought in to direct this film. If you might remember from our previous episode on X-Men: The Last Stand, he was scheduled to direct that film, but ended up dropping out due to the tight scheduling window to get that done. They ended up hiring he who shall not be named. In the meantime, however, you might remember Matthew Vaughn made Kick-Ass, which came out in 2010. So he kind of proved himself, I would say, with Kick-Ass, and they were very eager then to get him back. Vaughn was stoked because he basically didn't really want to take over for X3, just feeling like he had to continue someone else's story. And he said, quote, "I got my cake and ate it. I managed to do an X-Men movie, a Bond thing, and a Frankenheimer political thriller all at the same time." Kind of cool for him that it came full circle and he was able to actually do the X-Men movie that he had wanted to do and actually put his own directorial stamp on it. I think he did a good job with the directing in this film. Overall, personally, I think there's some good style to the film. And Matthew Vaughn, I think, does have a somewhat of a distinct style. If you go from Kick-Ass to the X-Men, you're not going to be able to go ultra violent and dark like that movie did. I think it's a solid director effort, at least a huge step up from X3.
They could go ultra violent, and in fact, they do go end up going that way with films like Logan. That's a pretty hyper violent,
Yeah.
super
Oh,
gory,
yeah.
bloody movie for sure. So I don't know. I say you lean into it now. Why not? Deadpool was like the highest grossing rated R movie of all time, so may as well.
I wonder if moving forward that this might be the future for the X-Men. Is like the themes are more adult. You've got the main guy with claws coming out of his body and, scratching people up. I would not be surprised if they end up going rated R for the next X-Men movie, but I mean, again, it's like PG-13 is the sweet spot for comic book films. So
Yeah, I know.
So, additional crew on this film, it was interesting. There were 5 different cinematographers used in this movie, Mike. The one who got credit was John Matheson. John Matheson will go on to be the cinematographer for Logan, as
Okay.
you just referenced, as well as Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So, he has a pretty robust comic book superhero resume coming up. According to Matthew Vaughn, he did about 45 to 55% of the movie. So, a lot of different cinematographers here. There were also 4 different assistant directors on this film, Mike. So they had just a huge crew involved to try to get this done. It was really just a lot of people working on this. It does feel a little disjointed, I would say. I don't feel like it's the way that Singer, I think, really left his stamp, his direct style on this. It doesn't feel as cohesive as the Bryan Singer X-Men films. Maybe suffers for that. Not super shocking to learn that.
I mean, it takes a village. We've got 5 different cinematographers and I don't know. What'd you say? 8 different writers, something like that. Hey, man, it takes a village.
I think that's one thing I'm realizing going through these X-Men movies is that it just seems like Fox is a lot more getting their fingers in the pie, so to speak, with the X-Men movies than maybe, some of the other ones.
They're trying to strike while the iron is hot for sure. I mean, we just got the major success of Iron Man 1 in 2008 and follow up with Iron Man 2 and Hulk, and
The Dark Knight.
but they're already seeing the effects of the cinematic universe and what that can do financially. They're trying to scramble a little bit and what do we got? Oh, we got X-Men and maybe Fantastic Four. We could try and do something, set them up a little bit here and create our own universe. It kind of feels like in this one.
100%. Let's talk a little bit about the score for this film too, Mike. It was done by Henry Jackman, who had also worked on Kick-Ass with Matthew Vaughn. I thought this was a pretty interesting score, and kind of like looking at some of the details around it, I thought was interesting. First off, he was inspired by John Barry's James Bond themes, and you can kind of hear that in some of the like kind of guitar notes. There's a lot of guitar on the theme. Hans Zimmer was also kind of used as something of a reference point for critics who were kind of talking about some points of comparison here. I also thought there's an interesting anecdote that basically he had written this super epic kind of Superman style theme, and Matthew Vaughn just felt like it was like a little too bright and coherent, and he wanted something that kind of was a little muddier to show the origins, that the team wasn't really fully solidified and complete. So they slowed a lot of it down to half time. And I think if you listen closely to the score, you can kind of hear that in some of the guitar, really like in slow motion. I thought it was a pretty good score. It didn't really blow me away, but I thought it was solid.
I'm glad you liked it. I did not share that sentiment.
You didn't?
No, I thought it was quite bad. I think that this whole thing feels like a demo CD of like, here's what you could do with Pro Tools kind of thing. If you plug in that CD into your computer and are booting it up for the first time.
Wow, you are harsh on the scores, my friend.
There's nothing memorable about it. I mean, what you're talking about with the guitar stuff, those are just noises that are basically happening. Like there's no theme, there's nothing you can remember or hum along to or sing in the shower. Like this is a very generic and bland score, and I don't think it fits at all.
Wow. All right. I think the other thing I kind of wanted to talk just briefly about was because of the way that we're doing this in terms of each season being on a different franchise, we really haven't heard a lot of diegetic music in any of the films we've discussed. A little bit in Batman with Prince's songs, but this is by far the film that uses the most diegetic music, meaning songs that are from pop artists actually taking place in the scenes themselves. I'm just curious, like, did any of the songs used diegetically in this film kind of stand out to you?
I can't really remember any of them. off the
Okay.
top of my head.
So La Vie en Rose, Edith Piaf's La Vie en Rose is put on by Sebastian Shaw, not only in the scene at the beginning when he first meets Magneto, but then also in the scene when he's having the meeting with the Colonel and Moira McTaggart is like spying on them. He uses the same record, which I thought was kind of a cool callback to his introduction. Another one, my guys Booker T and the MGs, Green Onions was on this bad boy. Interestingly and anachronistically, instrumental version of Run by Gnarls Barkley is used during the mutant recruitment montage. It's definitely my guys there. Funnily enough, because it's not used in the film anywhere, it would not work at all. But the song Love Love by Take That, the British boy band, was recorded as kind of the big original song for this movie. I listened to it today, Mike. This was their big comeback single after kind of launching the career of Robbie Williams in the 90s. And Take That is like a real British phenomenon, in my opinion. I don't know any of their songs. They were like, y'all can have that. The Robson brothers, I'm sure, could go off about Take That, but it's
Sure.
really
Yeah.
bad. It's called Love Love. It has nothing to do with the movie. It's just a really generic song. I don't think it hit really at all. For me, though, the one song that really popped used in the film Palisades Park during Moira McTaggart's first Las Vegas kind of spying on the people.
Yeah.
That's one of those songs that's like, to me, is so early 60s, so quintessentially early 1960s that I'm never really going to listen to it in my own life. If I'm trying to think of like what people were going through the world hearing in the early 60s, like Palisades Park is like the ultimate 60s track to me.
Okay, I'm going to take your word for it. I came much later than the 60s. I think for me, just in terms of like sheer classic recognition, Edith Piaf coming through for my boy Magneto twice in one movie. That was definitely when that track came on, and I was like, wow, that's a good, actually good song selection.
It's kind of got a haunting quality, so it sort of fits for Sebastian Shaw being the crazy sociopath that he is. Speaking of the cast, they had to recast all these roles and kind of go back and retrofit. Mike, this is a pretty banger of a cast, like 15 plus years on from this film. I mean, you really look back, they got a really great cast. You got McAvoy as Charles Xavier, codename Professor X, as they say in the movie.
Meh.
Fassbender as Magneto, aka Eric Lenscher. Funny enough, they misspell his last name in the credits, by the way.
Oh, dang it. You guys, what happened?
They missed the silent H before the end. Rose Byrne, I totally forgot that she was Moira McTaggart in this movie. Pretty big role for her too.
Yeah.
She's not a small character in this film, and I love her. I think she's an amazing actress. She's so funny too. She can do comedy and drama both really well. Awesome to see her. This was also one of the early Jennifer Lawrence roles.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'd have to look it up. I think this is pre-Hunger Games. Does that sound right? I believe so.
I think it was right before, because she'd done that movie Winter's Bone, which got her a lot of recognition, and then she did this, and it was because of her popularity with Hunger Games that they had to write her a bigger role for the next couple movies. So
Yeah, I think her character is pretty badly underwritten in this movie. It gets going in the second half, but there's a whole bunch of scenes where she's just like walking along and just kind of like the tag along with Professor X. I didn't necessarily love that part. January Jones playing Emma Frost, aka the White Queen. Oliver Platt, who whenever I see him, I'm just always like, oh, great. Oliver Platt's in this. Love to see you.
is that again?
He plays Man in the Black Suit. So he's the CIA agent who
Yeah, yeah.
sets them up. Yeah, never actually has a name. They just literally credit him as Man in the Black Suit.
Just one of those guys. He's always around.
One of those guys. Just great to see him. And last but not least, Kevin Bacon as Sebastian Shaw. So Kevin Bacon, he's been in so many movies. They literally made a whole thing of 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. And another guy who just, whenever he shows up, it's just like, yeah, Kevin Bacon, you're in this. Love to see you, dude. Great actor. Now, as far as supporting mutants in this film, got a lot of thoughts here, Mike. I'd love to hear yours as well. So the additional members, if you're a comic book reader, you know the X-Men, right? Emma Frost and Sebastian Shaw have always kind of anchored, I would say, the Hellfire Club. But in this movie, they go with a couple, I'm just going to say it, completely random mutants that I honestly wasn't really familiar with, even as an X-Men comic book reader. You've got Alex Gonzalez as Janos Quisted, codename Riptide. This is the guy that makes little tornadoes. Not going to lie, Mike, don't really feel anything towards this guy. I think his power set is like Storm Jr. He literally doesn't have a single speaking line in the movie, and they never explain why he doesn't talk. He does look good in that silver suit, but this is like weak sauce to me. Like Riptide, cool, man.
He doesn't add anything to any scene except just like, oh, now the scene's a little windy because of his tornadoes. You know what I mean?
He's
Like,
bringing some wind. Yeah, he literally doesn't have any moment of like, oh, that's cool that he used his powers. I guess he does bring down the jet. I don't know.
it's all the same. Yeah.
I don't think any X-Men fan was clamoring to see Riptide on the big screen. Now, I'm going to give more of a pass to Azazel. He's Nightcrawler. That's just all it is evil Nightcrawler. That's kind of, again, like a little weak sauce to be like, oh, Nightcrawler, it's him, but bad. With that being said, he's pretty awesome in this movie. I actually like him. I like that he's like got this devilish quality, which, Nightcrawler is this misunderstood Catholic, very moral character. And then you've got, yeah, he actually is leaning into like looking like some kind of demon.
So I mentioned in X-Men 2 that Mystique in the comics was actually Nightcrawler's mom. Azazel is Nightcrawler's dad. So there was some question on the internet. I remember when this movie was announced and who the characters were going to be. People were like, oh, Mystique and Azazel are both going to be in this movie. So maybe it'll be some kind of indication about Nightcrawler, maybe she gets pregnant from him or something. Yeah, he is basically evil Nightcrawler, but there's a reason for it, and that's because he is part of that same, mutant lineage, but not too much of an interesting character, but he does have some cool powers.
Well said. Now let's talk about the first class of X-Men. We've got Nicholas Hoult. He's not really like a member of the first class. He's well established within the CIA as one of their top scientists already. But I do think, Nicholas Hoult does a good job with his character. I really like Nicholas Hoult. I think he's done some awesome movies and is a really good actor. He's really
he's the man.
Turning into quite a career. I think, if anything, he's a little underutilized in this movie. And he's also a member of the Superhero Cinema Club Two Timers Club. He'll be seen again as Lex Luthor in Superman. Next up, we've got Zoe Kravitz as Angel Salvador, codename Angel, but not that one. Another two-timer in the Superhero Cinema Club. Didn't love her character, Mike. Not gonna lie. Really, really weak sauce. I really struggle with her a lot. Probably the most out of any of these X-Men. I just didn't really feel like she added anything, honestly. And yeah, didn't make a great impression on me.
Let's get into it. I'm totally down to do this right now. She's trash in this movie. Her character is trash. Her powers are trash. She betrays the whole team and just decides to go hold hands with Kevin Bacon the rest of the movie. Like, what is this character doing? She doesn't serve any purpose at all to any scene. She doesn't do anything to help anybody. And then she betrays them all and goes to the bad side. It's like, well, then fuck you. Like, go away.
Yeah, I completely agree. By the time that Mystique goes with Magneto at the end of the film, they've built a whole storyline around her self-acceptance, and it makes sense from a character standpoint. Oh, this is why they came together. It's beautiful, actually. She just totally just chooses to be like, yeah, whatever, that one guy made a joke outside the window to me, so I'm with Magneto now. Yeah, it's terrible. Not really a fan of Angel, but not that one. Next up, we got Eddie Gathegi as Armando Munoz, codenamed Darwin. I don't even think they say his name. They just call him Darwin the whole time.
No, they got the whole thing about they explain he's like, yeah, because I adapt to survive.
Yeah, but I don't think they ever call him Armando. I think they just say
Darwin
the whole time. Yeah. So in any event, yet another member of the two-timer club. He also joins Nicholas Hoult in Superman as Mr. Terrific. I think we shouted him out, if I remember, as one of the winning guys in that movie. I love him as Mr. Terrific.
Yeah, he's great.
Darwin, again, I'm just thinking, who was like, I got to see Darwin. Darwin's my guy. That's one of the X-Men that I love. Like, I just didn't really, I don't know, just didn't really get his whole thing. Honestly.
I get to see the guy who turns into a rock. Like, okay, cool.
Yeah, this is one of the most frustrating things to me about this movie. I understand that you're not going to be able to bring in the characters that we know from the other films because you're doing something set before, so you kind of need to have different mutants. But there are so many awesome X-Men characters they could have brought in. Apparently, Sunspot was in the script. He got cut. Much rather see Sunspot than any of these guys. Didn't really love him.
Sunspot would have been a good alternative for Zoe Kravitz's character because he can fly and he shoots little fireballs instead of like acid balls or whatever she's shooting. But it would be like if you want that kind of a character with those powers, like he would be a good fit for that role.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think they should have swapped those for sure. They maybe I guess they maybe needed another woman, but yeah, there's so many other Blink, like there's so many other cool characters they could have done instead of her. That being said, the last two I did kind of like. I have always been a Banshee guy. There's just something about his powers I thought was always really cool. The fact that he can fly using supersonic waves, I thought was really sick. So it was great to see Caleb Landry Jones as Cassidy, aka Sean Cassidy, aka Banshee. Kind of a missed opportunity on the character overall, as far as I did not love his jumpsuit. Very cool in the comics to see the way that he's able to use that to fly. They kind of captured it in this. Like, I'll give him like 6 out of 10, but like,
Yeah, it's not great.
eh, it's not great.
They still haven't fully figured out how to make people look good while flying. And X-Men 3 had this problem too with Angel flying around. He just looks like a guy who's on wires, in front of a big CGI green screen or whatever, but they still haven't fixed it here. And it's probably not going to be fixed for another couple years with like Avengers, basically.
Yeah, you may be right. I did like his flight with it's Beast that's holding on to him when or no, I'm sorry, it's Havoc that's holding on to him over the ocean. You could tell those were real stunt guys at
Yeah.
that part, which was cool. But again, I'm just kind of like the physics. You're just gonna crash in the ocean immediately with a guy
Yeah.
holding on to one of your arms. Like the whole thing is a flying squirrel suit. You gotta have both arms out. I don't know. It was
It doesn't physically look right. There's still an uncanny valley thing happening here with people flying in this movie. It's still not right.
Yeah, totally agree. Last but not least, we've got Lucas Till as Alex Summers, codename Havoc. Now, if the Summers name carries some weight to you as an X-Men fan, that's because Alex Summers is the older brother of Cyclops, Scott Summers, kind of a significant figure in X-Men lore in so much as his abduction is kind of what sets off the new X-Men. They have to go rescue Havoc, if I remember correctly. Even though his character itself is like kind of marginal in the X-Men universe, he does kind of play an important role in some of the developments of introducing characters like Colossus, Storm, those people coming in. I believe they're on a mission to save Havoc. Havoc's cool. It's kind of weird. Like, he has light beams, but they come out of his chest. It's like a hula hoop thing. Again, Cyclops, but not quite. So why aren't we just going with, I don't know. I'm not sure who would fit better, but it's like we need a Cyclops type character and Alex Summers will work. So let's go with him.
They made his powers a lot more unstable than what I'm used to seeing. I'm used to seeing the guy who can just like shoot these beams out of his hands, which is much more controlled than what they give him here with the weird hula hoop energy beam thing happening, which is kind of cool, but it's cool when he learns to focus it, I think, later on in the movie. But I mean, yeah, he's not a great performance or anything by any means, but he's not the worst mutant in this movie by far. So he gets a pass.
Yeah. And again, I think you can see some thematic overlap, right? That he, in the same way that Scott has to have a visor to control his energy blast out of his eyes, like he can't really control his energy blast either. So, like, they're like kind of touching on it, but this isn't really an I've got questions, but I'm just kind of like, why is he in jail? What did he do? And why is he like, I want to be contained to solitary confinement?
I had
Because
that, yeah.
you don't just shoot this out like with Scott Summers, where it's like, if I open my eyes, you're dead. I just didn't really understand why he needed to be in a cell by himself. But
Yeah, definitely.
huge cast here, Mike, and I don't want to get into nitpicks or whatever, but there is one bit of recasting I'd love to run past you, Mike, and that would be Margot Robbie as Emma Frost. I feel like Margot Robbie could play that character just so much better. In my mind, like Emma Frost is like wicked smart, but manipulative, just total bombshell. I think we could say Margot Robbie just has those characters in spades. That would be my one like ideal recasting. I don't know if you have any from your mind.
I mean, she's definitely a better actor than January Jones. I really like January Jones in Mad Men, and she fits that really, really well. But this character is generally underwritten. She's much more important to the X-Men comic storyline than they gave her reason to be in this movie. So it's a little bit of like, well, we got to make the character better so that we can punch it up, make it a bigger role, and give it to a bigger star like Margot Robbie. So she would be great if they wrote the role to be what she deserved.
Great point. It's a great point. I think it's more on the writing than it is on the performance for sure. But that'd be my one bit of wish casting there. So, all right. Well, with that out of the way, let's get into our categories, Mike. As always, we're going to start with the best action scene. Now, one thing I thought was pretty interesting about this film, Mike, was that in terms of like big action set pieces, there's really only three. There's kind of a little bit here and there, and there's little drops of action spread throughout, but there's really only three big action scenes. The first one would be I'm on a boat. This is when Sebastian Shaw and the Hellfire Club are docked in Miami Bay. Magneto sneaks up through the water. Magneto could have just taken them out from a distance, right? He didn't have to come up onto the boat and be like, hey, it's me. You know, that kind of thwarts the plan. But I do think that Magneto wanted to see him die, right? Like he was driven by revenge, so he couldn't do that. But it just seems to me like do your anchor trick from the water.
No, he's gotta talk to him. He's gotta savor the revenge, you know.
Fair enough. But I would say that ripping the boat apart with the giant anchor and the chain was sick. That was awesome. They're running through the halls, everything's getting smashed around them. I very much enjoyed that action scene. The next big action scene is the assault on the CIA headquarters. This is when Sebastian Shaw and the two non-imprisoned members of the Hellfire Club show up. There's some good Azazel stuff here.
Yeah.
Definitely like him using his powers to just go super high in the sky and just let people go and just fall to their deaths. Tornado guy, Riptide, pretty whack. I do like Shaw's speech to the kids too, because he flips the whole, you really want to defend a world that hates and fears you, which is the actual slogan of the X-Men of like defending the world that hates and fears them.
Yep.
That was a bit of clever writing, but yeah, I think the biggest thing I have in my notes from the scene is exactly what you brought up. Angel just immediately backstabbing the crew. Yeah, I'll go with you.
Yeah. I have no connection to these people.
Literally 1 minute ago, and I'm sold.
He makes a compelling argument, yeah. For sure.
Come on, what are we doing there? But I think the big thing with this movie, right, is that they kind of just a couple action scenes, and then the climax of the movie is like the last 40 minutes, right? It's like a massive action set piece for the entire really third act or close to it. So there's kind of little sub action scenes within there. You have the Cuban Missile Christ X. Get it?
Boo.
I will never not make these bad puns when I can. Like, that's just, I know the people at home probably let out a groan as well. I don't care. It's always going to happen.
Fine.
There's some really cool shots in this part. I do really like the shot of like Shaw entering the nuclear reactor and like it's like a hall of mirrors in there. I really like the shot of Magneto coming down on the wheel well to like lift the sub out of the water. You know, it's kind of standard issue. The Russians are going to attack and then America's going to attack. And so it's a little confusing that Professor X would take over the guy's mind and almost take themselves out from the trajectory of the plane. Like, just why not just wait just a second until you're maybe out? I guess there was a countdown of some kind. They maybe had to act quickly, but that was a little confusing. But good intro there. Then we get kind of the showdown on the beach, and it's sort of people squaring off. So you've got Beast and Havoc versus Azazel. I like how Beast like sticks his claws in him and is like, what are you going to do now? You know, you're screwed too. That was pretty clever. Tornado Man, just immediately Magneto just drops the submarine door on him, which I thought was sick. It was almost like the filmmakers knew it. It's just like, get out of here,
you stupid character.
I don't like you. Fittingly, you've got the flying superheroes, Banshee versus Angel. Angel just spitting her acid at people. And
yeah, what a stupid character.
And like I mentioned, I did enjoy the practical stunt of Banshee kind of flying over the ocean. Really clever to see Mystique impersonate Shaw for a second and kind of throw off.
Yeah, that's what she does.
Yeah, it's a nice use of her powers. And then finally, the beach attack. So they go through that sequence, and now the Soviets and Americans are both launching their missiles at the X-Men. If there's one thing that can bring the world together, it's their hatred and fear of the X-Men. I like that thematically. And then I really like, how does Charles end up in a wheelchair? Well, Moira's shooting at Magneto, and he's just deflecting the bullets here and there. And like, I thought that was a very clever way to set up, the paralysis of Charles Xavier, which is obviously one of his, what he's best known for. So, Mike, which of these action scenes would you say was your favorite?
I'm going to go with the Cuban Missile Crisis attack on the beach. The last act of the movie here is a lot of fun. We get a good use of everybody's powers, Banshee flying around, and like you cited, the different characters all having their own little one-on-one matchups with each other is pretty fun. And then we get basically Magneto versus the world as entire cruisers are firing their payloads. And that's my favorite shot in the movie, is when he lifts his hands up and stops all the missiles from landing right on the beach next to everybody. It's really good cinematography here. The POV shot on Banshee as he's flying over the bay and then like spinning around and doing a barrel roll is pretty impressive for a practical shot, as you mentioned. So I like all that. And the stakes are just really high right here. We know what came about because of the Cuban Missile Crisis. So I thought it was actually really clever to put a spin on why Russia backed down, like right at the brink of nuclear destruction. And it was pretty clever to integrate the X-Men into that reason. Some pretty good writing, and the stakes matter. And so this is my vote for best action scene.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think specifically Magneto taking out Sebastian Shaw with the coin is just spectacular. The whole movie has kind of been leading up to his revenge plot. And, there's so many different ways, right, that he could finally take him out and get his revenge. To use the same Nazi coin that he tortured him with at the very first scene of the movie, and then the cinematography here and the editing where he's pushing the coin through his frozen body and it cuts back and forth and it's doing the same pan on Charles as he's screaming like, no, don't do this,
Yes. Yeah.
and cutting back and forth is absolutely magnificent. I mean, this is genuinely, I think, one of the coolest death scenes in any comic book movie I can think of. It's in slow motion too. Like he could flick it through his head in an instant. Just really, really well done from the filmmaking and thematically and all of it. Just a satisfying kill scene. So to me, like that part specifically through the end of the scene, to your point, the missile attack. And then, like I said, I really like the explanation behind Professor X's paralysis and all of that too. Like everything from then on, I think is just absolute money. Really good stuff. Now let's talk about our favorite non-action scenes. And Mike, as I mentioned, there are so many in this movie. So I think maybe we can just kind of go through a few of the different ones I particularly liked. And it's got to start with the opening scene. They retconned the beginning of the original X-Men movie into this. And this is something that's been done in movies from Back to the Future 2 to even Avengers Endgame, The Dark Knight Rises. This is like kind of a trope. It works for me every single time. If you have a scene in a movie that is revisiting a scene from another movie, I freaking love it. I thought this was such an awesome scene, and bringing his mom into the room and being like, okay, we're going to torture your mom right now. If you don't move this coin, we're just going to kill her right in front of you. And then, oh, wunderbar, wunderbar. Like Kevin Bacon is so happy to just run this experiment. His mom means nothing to him. Kid's acting is like a little shaky here, a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
But just absolutely thought this was such a cool introduction to the character and really, again, sets the stakes, right, of his revenge tour that's going to come up later.
The best part about this scene is the camera reveal that they're sitting in an office that also doubles as like a torture room. And so the first half of the scene is shot. The cameras are basically sitting on the right side of the office facing Kevin Bacon and the kid. And then finally, when he reveals that he's like serious about taking matters to the next level and potentially torturing someone, the camera cuts to the other side of the office looking back at where we were. And you see this entire other side of the room lined with hacksaws and files and all sorts of torture devices. Like, oh shit, this is a lot more than just an office room. I just thought that was a really clever way of revealing the intensity of the scene here. And yeah, great set design here for sure.
Totally. After this scene, there's like a moment, jumps forward in time, and Magneto's got the like Charlie from Always Sunny corkboard, like trying to figure out all the people. And you notice
Pepe
what does he do? He flings the Nazi coin into the picture of Sebastian Shaw.
Yes.
Really
yeah.
good little bit of foreshadowing there as well. The next big scene that stands out is just totally sick to me is the Magneto with the banker guy. Again, let's show some cool ways to get Magneto's powers. How about pulling out a dude's metal fillings from his mouth? My God. When you really dig into Magneto, he really is just there's endless opportunities to showcase his abilities in a world where so much of our life has metal, even in our mouths, even, everywhere.
It's everywhere. Yeah. You got a fake knee.
Yeah.
You're screwed.
Totally sick. And then, of course, the showdown in Argentina. Comes to the bar, is just like, oh, they didn't have a name. It was taken from them by pig farmers and tailors. And he says that in German. Of course, he doesn't say that in English, but what a bar. His revenge is just delicious. Stabbing the guy in the hand with his Nazi ass knife, then using it to fling into the other guy, forcing the dude to shoot the other guy. I mean, this is just beautiful stuff here.
It's really well shot. This has one of those shots where, do you know what a bifocal camera lens is?
No, please tell me.
They've got two different objects on screen that are at different distances away from the camera, but they're both in focus. So a lot of guys like Brian De Palma used those shots. It's a really expensive camera lens to use because it can do that. So there's a shot in particular here, though, where like Magneto is in the forefront of the shot drinking a beer, completely in focus, and then the Nazis behind them at the table. And I was like, I don't know, it's just one of those little things where I just became a little bit more impressed at the filmmaking because they chose to splurge and buy that more expensive camera lens for that shot.
Yeah, this is just really good stuff. That scene in particular, I think, is just an awesome revenge scene. And Fassbender killing Nazis in bars. I'm here for it, no
Yeah, it's
matter what.
great stuff. Yeah. Taking down Nazis, of course.
Not necessarily a scene, but I want to shout out the what feels like real chemistry between Jennifer Lawrence and Nicholas Hoult, who apparently did date in real life for quite some time. And I think that they have really good chemistry. And yeah, props to them. It's not always that you get the case where they actually seem like they're into each other, but I did feel it there.
I hope they live happily ever after.
So with all that being said, I do think there is my favorite non-action scene. And it's kind of a collection of scenes, but I'm just going to put it here. The whole cure section, right? So it's the night before they're about to go on their big mission. Hank and Jennifer Lawrence display some of that great chemistry. And he's like, you should take the cure with me. She's kind of starting her journey of self-acceptance. There's a good debate around the ethics of everything between Professor X and Magneto. I absolutely love Hank's transformation into Beast. The way that they shot this is so cool. It really feels like a werewolf transformation. It's a
Yeah, it
first
does.
person shot. You see his body like changing. He's like looking at his arms. Everything's kind of changing. And then there's like the shot of him looking at himself in the mirror as he's turning blue. It just really feels like a werewolf transformation. Big fan of werewolf transformation scenes. So I really, really love that. There's kind of the funny cameo with Rebecca Romaine, with Mystique putting the moves on Magneto. She clearly was like, she just immediately pivots from Hank to Magneto. Didn't love that,
Yeah.
but she was DTF because she might die tomorrow. She's like, I want to get some action before I die.
It was a pretty quick pivot, though, from Hank to Eric there.
Yeah, it's pretty quick. And it's not really clear if they do bone or just kiss. So, there's that too. And then finally embracing her as her true blue self. So what I like about all of this is that, like, taken together, these scenes really show the characters that we've seen through the movie kind of becoming the X-Men that we know. You got Beast becoming the Beast. You have Mystique finally accepting, I'm going to be blue and proud. Magneto articulating, I want revenge on this one guy, his worldview, Professor X's worldview. It's just really smart stuff. And I thought that was an excellent collection of scenes to kind of underscore those themes. Mike, what about you? What was your favorite non-action scene?
I really like just the recruitment montage of them going around and finding all these different people and kind of seeing what they can do in the real world, and then saying like, yeah, we want you to come join us. We could use your gifts and abilities. It's just felt to me like the movie was really kind of moving quickly here, and they did a really good job of introducing everybody in their own kind of unique way, like Zoe Kravitz at the strip club and all that. We get the nice little cameo from Hugh Jackman saying, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, let's talk about that scene in particular, Mike, because we have kind of talked on the rated R nature of certain comic book movies. Deadpool was kind of the first. Well, there were others, but like Deadpool was the first really big IP to kind of cross that threshold. The thing with PG-13 is that if you're gonna curse and use the F-bomb, I think you can't curse other curses, and you can only use it once. And so, to my memory and knowledge, the only other F-bomb that's been used in a PG-13 comic book movie is Guardians of the Galaxy 3, where Star-Lord and Nebula are visiting that planet, and she's like, or no, it's Mantis, I guess, and he's like, just get in the fucking car.
Yeah.
To me, that is a better use of the F-bomb, because it just really is set in, very urgent, and it kind of comes out of nowhere. That being said, this is an excellent find. I mean, if you're going to drop an F-bomb, this is a really, really good usage, and it comes in like a fun cameo as well.
I'm definitely a fan of the phrase "go fuck yourself" in general. It's kind of an inside joke between me and a lot of my close friends. And you know what? If you're gonna give it to one character to say who better than Wolverine, yeah, leave him alone. Let him drink his whiskey, smoke a cigar. Go fuck yourself. He's not joining your team. Like, come on, man.
Absolutely.
He's got better
Yeah.
things to do.
That's a great point because yeah, Star-Lord using the F-bomb is a little bit out of character, but Logan using the F-bomb is completely in character. So they're both delicious for different reasons, but yeah, really great cameo there. Now let's talk about total destruction here, Mike. I had really meticulous notes on this one, so if I may.
Please.
Pretty significant number in this film. We're not going to count the 6 million Jews killed in the Holocaust, although they technically would kind of count.
Don't make me laugh at that. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, no, what's wrong with me, Mike? What's wrong with you? It's nothing funny. 6 million, including my own relatives.
Obviously, we're not going to count the Holocaust. 6 billion people.
We're not going to count the Holocaust.
Okay.
Blessed be their memory. Magneto's mom, that's our first death.
Yep.
Brutal kill, by the way. Then we get the 3 guys at the bar that we discussed.
Oh, hang on. You moved right over the other 2 Nazi guards that get their heads crushed by the magnetic effect from Magneto with his mom. Yeah.
Great point. I completely forgot about them. I was just too busy thinking about, frankly, all the Jews outside of the window in that scene. But that's just me. You get the 3 guys at the bar. Then you get the colonel on the ship with Sebastian Shaw.
Yep.
Now, the attack on CIA headquarters, Azazel, I watched closely and counted, takes out Oliver Platt, and 7 more are dropped from the sky. Now, this is where we get a little more approximate, but I'm going to go with about 25 soldiers in the courtyard and another 25 in the mezzanine that Sebastian Shaw just firebombs when he turns their powers around. So we got another 50 there. Feels about right.
Yep.
5 more in the hallway protecting the kids. There's an extra guy, if you remember, in the courtyard who's like, stop, freeze. And then he's like, Azazel, and he just goes and gives him a stab.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Then, of course, Darwin. Now, we got to talk just really briefly about Darwin's death because it just doesn't make any sense, obviously. You can adapt to anything, and yet you get a bomb inside you. Like, you can't turn your guts into metal. You know what I mean? Like, I've seen over the years a lot of people pointing out that doesn't make sense for a guy that can adapt to everything. I don't have strong feelings on this, but I want to talk it out with you.
I don't know why, but my natural inclination was to assume that his insides could not change, that it was just an exterior thing, but I don't know why I thought that.
I mean, he gets gills, right? Like that's changing his physiology when he's 6. Yeah. So yeah, I feel like he could do something. Nevertheless, Darwin dies. So then the climactic scene, okay? You've got the Russian sea vessel. Professor X uses his telepathic abilities to go into the ship. There's the soldier who's barely alive. He sees Azazel get stomped out. Professor X says they've killed the entire crew. So I went ahead and Googled what is the crew for a Soviet era submarine. Apparently, it's approximately 727 crew members. Okay. I mean, that ship alone is pretty significant. It really takes up the bulk of the deaths in this film if you count them, which we should. And then last but not least, it's Shaw himself dies. So I've got in the neighborhood of 800 people dying in this movie. It's pretty bloody, really, altogether, I would say.
I stopped counting after Azazel dropped everybody out of the sky during the CIA base attack. So I was sitting around 50 or so, and I felt pretty good about that through the rest of the movie. Did not count into the fact that the submarine, what do you call it, manifest? So
he says aloud, he killed the whole crew, Mike. I mean, look, these were Soviet-era commies. I ain't got no love for commies, being a red-blooded patriotic American myself. But I do think it's important that we acknowledge their sacrifice. And it's not X2 levels of millions of people dying as a result of the planes that crashed during the telepathic interruption. Never forget them. I do think this is probably our second bloodiest superhero film that we've discussed thus far, right?
I think that's right.
Yeah. Now let's talk about the evil scheme. You touched on it earlier, but I really feel like we got to underscore this again. This is so clever. They retrofitted the Cuban Missile Crisis and stuck the X-Men in the middle of it. So I Googled this too, Jupiter missiles Turkey, and that was a real thing. The US
Yeah.
really did move Jupiter missiles into Turkey.
Yes, they did. Yeah.
Yeah, so like all of this various little details that took place in the middle of the Cuban Missile Crisis, it's all put into the plot of this movie in a way that doesn't really feel forced. This is to me another one of those things that I always love to see. Like Watchmen did this as well, where it's like, oh, it turns out all these events that we're well familiar with in 20th century history, actually there's other things going on there. There's, or what if people with superpowered abilities were in the middle of these situations? In this case, it's almost like they're reimagining the Cuban Missile Crisis, but
Right.
in the factual ways that it all went down. So just a super cool way to do it. I love that part of the Evil Scheme.
Historical fiction is always really fun. I do appreciate when a superhero movie can do it too, because it definitely adds an extra layer. It's not just people punching each other. It's like, oh, this is a little fun to look at. This situation happened because, the X-Men were punching each other. So
Exactly.
exactly. Yeah, it adds a nice little extra little piece of fun. Something like Superman Red Son, is a good historical fiction kind of companion piece.
Totally agree. The thing that I don't like in the scheme, however, is the way that it kind of undermines what I conceptualize mutants even being in the first place, which is the implication through Shaw's plan is that mutants were brought about by radioactive activity. I don't really love that. Okay. Everyone knows the only thing that was brought about as a result of radioactive activity was Godzilla and his whole universe.
Or Radioactive Man.
Yeah, Radioactive Man, sure. We'll go with those guys. The idea with the X-Men is that their evolutionary mutation is behind how they get their powers. That's a big thing. In the first three films, they say it over and over again. Evolution, like every so often, a
He says it
mutation.
in this movie. He's like hitting on girls with that
So
speech.
like, which one is it?
By the way, this Xavier fucks.
Oh, he fucks hard. He definitely fucks. We're gonna have to put a content warning on this particular episode, but there's no two ways about it. Like he's a horn dog and he gets laid a lot. But yeah, I just didn't really love the idea that like it's kind of based on radiation as opposed to like evolution. Did you have thoughts about that? I bumped up against that personally.
Yeah, it doesn't really resonate, especially in the same movie where Professor X he said it a couple times, like, oh, mutation, that's what's causing all these things. You have a very groovy mutation. Like it's been established multiple movies before and during the same movie that it is mutation. So for someone else to come along and try to say something different, it feels like a conflict, within the plot itself.
Exactly. So you have a mutation, so you're immune to radiation? Like that doesn't really make sense to me. Like
Yeah, I
I
didn't get that.
just didn't really like that part of it, but otherwise good evil scheme. Now let's talk about secret layers and costuming. Not a ton to talk about, I would say, in this one, but
Oh, are you kidding me?
well, yeah, there it is. But why don't you take this one then, Mike? What are your thoughts around this?
Not only is the private submarine super sick, that's like Lex Luthor level of evil layers, He's got this giant mirrored in submarine.
Yeah,
But I really liked the set design for the scene at the beginning where Moira goes to infiltrate in her underwear, and you got the private table that spins around for the hidden room, and then there's a bookshelf with its own hidden door behind that, so it's like a secreter room.
that's a great point.
I just really like the whole 70s aesthetic, or I guess 60s aesthetic, like the sunken living room in that hidden room there, and the standalone fireplace like right in the middle of the room. How they used to have that was a big 60s kind of aesthetic. So I don't know. I just really appreciated that scene. I thought it was really classy and like could totally sit there with a glass of cognac and a cigar.
Absolutely. Now, don't get me wrong. I am as big of a fan of the sunken '60s sex den as anyone you'll find. Quite frankly, like you've been to my house, right? Like
That's right. Yeah. Why'd you take that out? What's wrong with you?
yeah, yeah. I had to get rid of it for neighbor reasons, but overall, I did want to ask. I felt that, and they actually kind of talked about this a little bit. They wanted to do '60s, but they didn't want it to feel overly '60s. They wanted it to have kind of a timeless quality as well, so it wasn't just completely beholden. And to me, like it just left me wanting a little bit. I felt like the CIA building in particular, something about it just didn't. It just didn't feel quite 60s enough for me or something. There's parts that felt very 60s in terms of the plot we just discussed, and then there's parts that just the costumes weren't quite 60s enough. I don't know. I felt like they kind of didn't fully execute on it in a way that left me a little bit frustrated.
I thought Emma Frost was a good capture of that time capsule kind of quality to it. Her hair and lingerie and stuff like that in particular definitely felt she looks like a fembot in this movie.
Yeah, she does. She looks exactly like a Austin Powers fembot. That's exactly
Yeah,
right.
she does kind of capture the quality, but she's really the only character that does
Some of Shaw's costuming, I would say.
the sideburns a little bit, I guess, for him.
Sideburns, yeah,
James McAvoy says groovy a couple times, but it's not
exactly.
enough. You're either going to go all in or you're not.
Totally. Yeah, I don't know. It was very diluted. I think that's the word I would use. It's just kind of a diluted 60s quality. I wanted a little more hardcore. All right, Mike, it's time to identify our favorite and least favorite mutants from these movies. I'm going to go ahead and kick us off for my favorite mutant. That would be Kevin Bacon as Sebastian Shaw. I really loved him in this. Kevin Bacon is not someone who I would ever really like dream cast as a comic book character, the way that we talked about just the tremendous casting of Professor X. And, you know, in the original, it's not like, oh, Kevin Bacon's got to play X, Y, or Z, right? But he just does such a good job. He's very chilling in his casual sociopath way. I think Sebastian Shaw in the comic books, right? It's a character that's defined by arrogance to me. And he really has that like swaggering arrogance about him in this film that comes through. And I really thought too, what was cool was like he has certain attitudes about mutant superiority. He has a with us or against us attitude. He says these things aloud. At the end of the movie, right? He gives that big speech to Eric. And Eric's like, I agree with everything you just said, but you killed my mom. And so it's like you can see the way that Shaw's overall, let's call it political philosophy, informs the character of Magneto. I thought Kevin Bacon just did a great job of kind of like, okay, let's bring that kind of character to life. I just think he's kind of underrated as like a bad guy actor in movies like The River Wild or Hollow Man from the 90s. Like he
Yeah.
plays the villain and he can do a really good job of being villainous. So yeah, Kevin Bacon to me, he's the MVP of the movie. Who you got?
I think, and this just comes in terms of pure just character development. He's not the coolest mutant in this movie, but I just love this guy as an actor. I think he does a really good performance. His character is very sympathetic and easy to connect with, and that is Nicholas Hoult as Beast. We're just now getting a glimpse of what Nicholas Hoult can do. Like you mentioned too earlier, he's going to have a fantastic career ahead of him. So it was a pleasure to see him, you know, a little younger, a little more naive, and doing a younger, more naive character. I just thought that it worked really well. He's really good in this role. Yeah, he has great chemistry with Jennifer Lawrence, and it works all around. He's like smart, he's timid, he's shy about who he really is, and then he's forced into being this, you know, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde character. And I just thought he handled it pretty well all around. So I'm going with Beast.
It's a great shout out. I think you nailed it there. I mean, I think the big thing is that we talked about it in the last X-Men movie. Kelsey Grammer is just so over the top of just like, I'm the erudite. And
Right.
it just feels really forced and corny. And like here it's just like, he's just smart. He knows what he's doing. Who knew? Hank invented Cerebro. I would have thought that was a Professor X invention. And yet it was Hank. Lots of cool stuff there. He gets the Blackbird. I think that's great. All right, now it's time for our worst mutant, Mike. I mean, it feels like you've already said your answer.
I've already said mine. It's Zoe Kravitz. She's terrible.
Totally fair.
Worst mutant in this movie. Definitely not as bad as the human cactus from X-Men 3, but still a stupid character, stupid powers. She betrays everybody for no reason at all. Like,
Yeah.
why don't we just get rid of her? She's gone. You're cut from the team. You're cut from the movie.
I don't disagree with anything you just said. I am going to go in a slightly different direction. I'm going to go with January Jones as Emma Frost.
Wow.
As I said, this is no shade at January Jones. She's super awesome, as you mentioned, as Betty Draper in Mad Men. She's has one of those looks that is quintessentially 60s. So just casting her alone does some heavy lifting in terms of setting the period right. You said it, man. Her character is so underwritten in this movie, and it almost to the point of like you're missing the whole thing of her character in the comics. She's like so clever, so manipulative, always like two steps ahead of everyone around her. She uses her beauty to manipulate. They do have the scene with the Russian colonel here where he's, fantasizing about it. I gotta say too, though, man, I just did not love the look of her when she goes into diamond form. I know that's a really hard visual effect to bring to life, but like
They struggle with that, yeah.
it just really wasn't quite nailing it there. So yeah, it's tough. I think it's more of the way the character is written than a January Jones thing, but it just felt like a real missed opportunity for me. And now it's time for everyone's favorite section. I've got questions.
I want to ask you a bunch of questions, and I want to have them answered immediately.
Questions. Questions that need answering.
Too many questions. There's too many questions. There's just too many. Yeah. I'll ask the questions.
Mike, I'm going to go ahead and kick us off with my first one. It's one of the very first moments in the movie. It's when Raven shows up at Professor Xavier, the Xavier mansion, the family house, pretending to be his mom. He sniffs it out immediately. And then he says to her, "You'll never be hungry again because you can just live with us." So he just literally like meets her and is like, "You're in. You're part of the family now."
Yep,
I just met you 2 minutes ago. I have not spoken with a single adult in this household about you becoming part of the family. But sure, I'm a 9-year-old and you got my blessing. Like, let's go. Just
my mom will be cool with it. My mom, who has never served me lunch in my life, will definitely be cool with taking on another child responsibility.
yeah, just do you really have the authority to make that call as a 9-year-old, Professor X? I'm not sure that you do. So
that leads very nicely into my next one, which is Professor X and Mystique, they're the same age? So she's like 60 in the events of the original X-Men movies.
yeah, I am glad you brought this up, though, because they did actually explain not only that, but Sebastian Shaw as well, being the same age. Beast is looking at this slide and he's like, "Oh, your cellular matter is super interesting. When you're 40, you'll still look like a teenager," or something like. So he actually gives an explanation for that. And Shaw says the same thing when he blows up the Colonel. He's like, "One of my powers is that it keeps me looking young. And also, like, I can blow you up, So, yeah, they do have explanations for both of those, but that's a valid point. My next one is like, so Shaw says explicitly when Emma Frost throws Magneto off the boat, like, hey, we don't harm our own kind.
Yeah, bull.
5 scenes later, he's shoving a bomb down Darwin's throat and exploding him. What? So which is it? And also trying to kill all the mutants, like, to stop the Cuban Missile Crisis. I mean, again, like, he's kind of offered them the option, but like the Darwin one in particular is like, you don't want Magneto just thrown into the water, which he's fine, obviously, but then you have no problem going down, shoving a bomb down his throat. Okay. What's your moral code, Sebastian Shaw? What's your code, man?
The guy who's the president of the Hellfire Club. What's your moral code, man? This is just maybe more of a gripe than anything. Is it actually possible for Professor X to use his powers without touching his temple? Is that something he had to learn to not do? Because he doesn't do it in the later movies.
Maybe it's kind of a tick for him. He just like sort of started doing that. But yeah, the temple thing does seem to be like, it's like there's a little on switch on the side of his temple that's like,
yeah, there's one scene where he touches his temple and he like struggles for a second. He's like, "I'm not going to be any use here." And it's like, put your hand back up to your temple. Make yourself useful.
Hit that switch, bro. It's right there, obviously. All right. For me, I completely concur with the Nicholas Hoult praise, the Beast praise in general. What I'm confused about is that like his big insecurity and struggle is that he has weird feet. It all stems from having weird feet. Outside of that, pretty normal guy. Just, I mean, he kind of might have some like Sideshow Bob shoes, and he does get bullied a little bit by Alex for that. But like, this is why you're so insecure. Mystique is blue and scaly. Nightcrawler, it looks like a demon. You have weird feet? Really? Like, I don't know, man. Is it really worth it, Beast? Really?
I personally, I don't feel like I have weird feet. Maybe I do, but I don't feel self-conscious about my feet. But I've heard from people who like, oh, my mom has like this weird thing with her feet. Like people who are sensitive about their feet are very sensitive about their feet. You know, it's just one of those things where they become embarrassed about it. And I don't judge you, Beast, for having a weird toe thumb thing going on here. Despite Mark not understanding your struggle.
Come on, dude. Just go to therapy about it, bro. Like, you can run super fast with him. You can hang upside down with him. Just get over it. He wouldn't be blue if you just had worked on yourself a little bit.
I'm just going to stand in allyship with my friends who have weird feet problems going on. I'm with you guys.
Love it.
So they keep talking about the way to harness your powers is to find the points between rage and serenity. Isn't that just being normal? Isn't that just like the normal feeling? You're at the two polar opposite extremes already, rage and serenity. So just right in the middle there is just, I just feel normal on a Tuesday afternoon.
Mike, you completely took the words exactly out of my mouth. It's like true focus lies somewhere between rage and serenity. Does it? You sure about that? Sure about that? Because to your point, that is normal. Somewhere between those two poles is called being normal. So yeah, I'm not sure about that bit of wisdom from Professor X there. This one is a personal thing for me, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. Okay. They're all coming up with their code names, right? It all makes sense. And then she's like, we're going to call you Magneto. Now, here's an issue I have not brought up yet. The entire time I read X-Men comic books as a kid, in my mind, when I'm seeing that name, I'm seeing Magneto. Because magnets is pronounced magnets, not magnetes.
Ooh.
Now, I'm very used to saying Magneto at this point. I've made peace with that. But like, there's something in the back of my mind that's always kind of bothered me about it. Like, why wouldn't it be Magneto, not Magneto? And here they are coming up with it, and it's like, oh, it's Magneto. I don't know. This is a personal gripe. Did you read it as Magneto until you heard it pronounced aloud as Magneto, or was your first exposure to the cartoon, so you already knew how? That was my deal. I always saw it as Magneto, and then it was like, oh, it's Magneto.
It was the latter for me. The cartoon introduced me first, and maybe like the arcade video game as well. So I was used to hearing Magneto. Didn't they say something about Magneto being the word derived from the Spanish or the Latin maybe for magnetism, something like that?
You may be right. I'm not totally sure, but again, this is a personal gripe. I just always read it as Magneto. Let us know in the comments if you read it as Magneto as well, because that was definitely, it was like shocking to me when I was like, wait, it's Magneto? Like it's spelled Magnet-O. So
Phonetically, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's weird. You got any more?
I got one more. Why did the producers of this movie forget that Mystique had like a weird voice modulation effect in the first movie? Do you remember that?
She does. Yes, that's right.
They completely went away with that. It's kind of like how Elizabeth Olsen forgot that her character had a Russian accent in the later MCU movies. So they just completely went away with the voice modulation here, where it was like, it sounded like two different voices kind of speaking at the same time in X-Men 1.
Yeah.
We've gone away from that.
Great point. Questions about that? My last one is Emma Frost gets captured at the Russian thing, is put in jail. William Stryker's dad kind of cleverly has a line, because did you catch the William Stryker's dad?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
He's like, you're thinking about your son William, you know? He says there's a war coming, which is a callback to the scene in X2 where he's like, the war is already here, you know, blah, blah, blah. But what bothers me about this scene is that Emma Frost turns into her diamond shape, pops open the glass, and is like, hey guys, like says some line to them. So you're a telepath. How are you not just freeing yourself at that point? How are you still you cut a hole in the glass, use your telepathic abilities to get out of jail now. I just don't understand. She's still in jail. Like, you just found your way out with the glass thing. I don't know. That was confusing to me.
I don't know. I don't have an answer. Like, her powers are pretty questionable in this movie. She's like powerful enough to battle Professor X apparently, but then she doesn't do anything to her own advantage at any point.
You can literally, you can create a double image of yourself for this Russian colonel, but you cut a hole in the glass and you can't figure out how to now manipulate them into letting you out of jail. Just weird.
Shout out to Boris the Blade in that scene, by the way.
Boris the Blade, let's go. That guy's That guy's the man. And now it's time for me to explain what this movie, Mike, was really all about. Honestly, and I don't see how anyone misses this theme, because it's really about the way those in power keep us subdued by manufacturing divisions within the proletariat. If I may explain, the government uses the X-Men as a tool when it's convenient for them without ever truly accepting them. They tell racist jokes towards the X-Men and even get sexist towards Moira McTaggart at the very end. Now, Magneto is privy to this, us turning on each other. It's what they want, he says to Charles Xavier after he's been paralyzed. But it's also the inability of mutants to unite behind a shared vision. At the end of the day, internecine conflict and petty personal grievances prevent a cohesive coalition from ever forming, much less gaining the necessary power to bring about meaningful change. This is true in 2026 as well as in the X-Men universe of the 1960s. Power to the people. That's what we need.
You didn't think it was about just being proud of who you are, being proud of your best self, mutant and proud.
This is
They did
subtext
it
in
like
all
6
the X-Men
times.
movies. Yeah, I mean, that's in all of them. But I'm just saying, like, when it comes down to it, those in power, they really want to keep us divided so that we can't actually unite together to rise up.
Amen to that. But yeah, they did have 3 other movies before this about the class system and, everybody being equal and not hating your fellow
Yeah,
person because of, who they are kind of thing. So it would have been kind of lame to do that again.
totally agree. Yeah, this is more of a Marxist view on what keeps the people oppressed as opposed to the racism and bigotry views of the previous X-Men films. Now it's time for the final verdict. As you know from listening to our episodes, we rank on a scale of classic, great, good, okay, bad, and terrible. Mike, my final verdict is good. It's really cool to see the X-Men movies revisit the timeline when they were first created by Stan Lee. I think it's also groundbreaking in that it's the first superhero film that's also a period piece, especially in the training montage. You have some cool comic book-esque use of panels from Matthew Vaughn. We've kind of complimented, some of his directing in this. I think he does a really solid job. And obviously the story, really clever with the way they put in the Cuban Missile Crisis and things like that. The biggest issue for me is just the missed opportunities. You have really underwritten characters, as we've discussed, the soft commitment to its period setting. I think also just what we know is coming next by virtue of the future, right, is, no pun intended, like, this is not the best version of these X-Men characters. We're going to get, some more stuff coming that's better. So I can't quite put it at great, but I do think it's a good movie. What's your verdict?
I'm going to go a little lower than you. I'm going okay on this one. I think, it's fine. Like, it doesn't really do anything to really hold my attention that well. It's like, okay, this is how the X-Men get started. Like, it kind of feels like a checklist of things to do by the end of the movie of like, we got to make sure that Professor X gets in a wheelchair by the end of the movie. We got to make sure that Cerebro's set up. We got to get them all in the mansion. There's a lot of things to just kind of move all the pieces on the board towards setting up X-Men 1. It's just like a by the numbers movie. There's nothing really significant that stands out as like directing style all the way through. Yeah, there's a couple nice shots here and there, and that may come as an advantage of having 5 different cinematographers, a lot of different brains to pick, but there's not a real style here. There's not a lot of stakes because we already know that these characters are going to make it through because it's a prequel. That's the problem with prequels, right? Nobody ever has a case to not be dead, basically. But I don't know, like, there's some fun scenes here and there with Magneto killing Nazis and stuff. Overall, I just kind of feel like this movie's fine. We don't really need it, I feel like, going forward, even because we already kind of get the backstory in the X-Men 1 and 2 about how these characters kind of came to be. So it's a fun movie for what it is. It's okay.
Wow. Yeah, Mike, we are really starting to get into the Siskel and Ebert era of our podcast here, where you were, I mean, we're not that far off, but you were and I think I've known this about you. Our listeners are probably learning this now. You're just, I think, generally a harsher critic than I am. I'm more forgiving towards certain things. I think also some of it's semantics and that we have different definitions of, because I definitely see your point. I think there's stuff in here that made me really frustrated, as we discussed. certain characters and just like excluding certain characters and having kind of a weak X-Men team and weak villains. Certain scenes I don't like, where it levels out to being okay, but like the good stuff is great enough to push it into that level of good for me. I, in my memory, remember this as great, and it definitely wasn't as good as I remember it being, but man, okay feels a little harsh to me. I'm not going to lie.
I just have a hard time putting it on the same pedestal as good as the other stuff I've already ranked as good, you know? So
Totally fair.
it's becomes that comparison of like, well, is it as good as something like Superman Returns? Or I mean, yeah, it's probably about that good, but I don't remember all the movies I put in good category, but you get what I'm saying.
Fair enough. There is no wrong opinion as it comes to art. That is the beauty of everything. For our final category, we like to send you guys out with a couple recommendations, and I will kick us off first with my comic book recommendation, Mike. So I went ahead and read X-Men First Class that this was based on. I didn't read all of the issues, I will say, but X-Men First Class was written by Jeff Parker and penciled by Roger Cruz. I have to say, like, the storytelling is like pretty basic. It's basically taking the 5 original X-Men, that would be Cyclops, Jean Grey, Iceman, Beast, and Angel, and kind of reimagining them as their first year at Professor X's academy. What's kind of interesting about the comic as opposed to the film is that they reimagine this set in contemporary times of the early 2000s or I guess mid 2000s when this comic was released. There's internet, there's Xboxes, there's things like that. It's set in the modern era or contemporaneously. But the art by Cruz is really cool. And it's cool to see them kind of back in the yellow costumes. We didn't even talk about the yellow costumes.
No, I didn't.
It's cool to see them. Definitely better than the black leather. I mean, I think one of the areas where X-Men movies up to this point have struggled is in costuming. And so this definitely gets the most points. Wouldn't say I like love these costumes in this film.
It's a step in the right direction for sure.
Yeah. They're moving in the right direction, though. It's very much inspired by the costumes, both of the original X-Men as well as from the First Class X-Men. So another thing that's kind of nice is it's not highly serialized, so you can kind of jump into X-Men First Class wherever you want to. There's some cool cameos from other Marvel characters like Lizards in the second issue. Doctor Strange shows up. So kind of some fun crossovers. Like I said, it's written towards a younger audience. It doesn't have that really big allegorical element that best X-Men stories do have, but check it out. And I'd say it's worth a read. X-Men First Class.
Awesome. That sounds like a good one. My first recommendation for comic is, because we didn't really get to talk about him that much, Wolverine. I'm going to go with a very highly acclaimed, kind of obvious, but I don't care because I love it anyway, Wolverine comic, Old Man Logan. And Old Man Logan is basically the story of Unforgiven as told through the eyes of Wolverine. So Logan, the movie, took a lot from this, but it's going to be a long time before we reach that movie, so I figured I'd go ahead and throw it in now. But Old Man Logan basically sees Wolverine, and in a much later time frame, he's old and gray haired, and he teams up with an old Hawkeye who's blind, and they do a kind of a cross country trek mission to go stop the Red Skull. The state of the world is much worse than you would think that it would be. Basically, all the villains have taken over. They realized that they outnumbered all the heroes like 10-1. They all teamed up to eliminate everybody's heroes altogether and took everything over. It's a great use of the Wolverine character. He, like William Money in Unforgiven, he doesn't want to kill anybody. He doesn't want to use his guns. He doesn't want to use his claws. And it's a pretty epic moment when he finally does. Like I said, not enough Wolverine in this movie. We just got the one cameo. So if you're itching for more Wolverine after you listen to this episode, go read Old Man Logan.
Yeah, even if you've seen the film, I would highly recommend the comic. Mark Millar is the writer, and Steve McNiven in particular, the artist. I love McNiven. I think he's like one of the best comic book artists. He has like a kind of realistic and cartoonish at the same time. Like it's just a very distinct art style. And the comic is very, very different from the film. Not only in, as you mentioned, bringing in other Marvel characters, but there's some major differences. So it's not just like reading an adaptation of the film. Definitely a really good call out there. As for film recommendations, I'm going to go with what is somewhat of an obvious pick, given that it's another movie in which Michael Fassbender plays a multilingual man getting revenge on Nazis in a bar.
I love it.
Nevertheless, You know what I'm talking about. It's Quentin Tarantino's masterpiece, Inglourious Bastards. Now, Mike, outside of Pulp Fiction, which was absolutely life changing for those of us who were teenagers and saw that in the theater, this is probably my favorite Tarantino movie. Brad Pitt as Lieutenant Aldo Rain is just hilarious and just an awesome role. Buongiorno is just one of the greatest line deliveries of all time. But obviously, I think when we talk about this movie, we got to start with Christoph Waltz. He was not known to American audiences going into this film. He gives an Oscar winning and Oscar much deserved winning performance as Hans Landa, just an absolutely sociopathic Nazi. The opening scene in the dairy farm is just, oh, makes your skin crawl. It's just truly the embodiment of just the casual bureaucratic nature of evil among the Nazi regime. The other breakout star in this film was Michael Fassbender. The scene in the bar is just one of the all-timers in the Quentin Tarantino repertoire with the three fingers. It's completely suspenseful. It's very twisty. It goes in all kinds of different directions. It's pretty much almost like a self-contained short film unto itself in the rest of the movie. One of the best scenes, I would say, in all of Quentin Tarantino films. We got to talk about the ending, so spoilers, if you have not watched this movie, just skip ahead a little bit and just put it on immediately because it's an all-time masterpiece.
You should watch it.
But the ending with the Nazi power structure getting massacred and burned alive in the movie theater was just so shocking the first time you see it, because all of us know how World War II actually ended. So when they're coming up on Hitler in the movie theater with this dude's eyes basically bulging out of his head and just destroying him with a Tommy gun, it was absolute poetry for my little half Jewish heart to finally see Hitler get killed in a way that is not him weaseling his way out of justice. It just is a real tragedy. I'm not really big into retribution and vengeance generally. I prefer grace, but like, if any man deserved to be like hung in public for his crimes against humanity, it's Adolf Hitler. So to watch this dude just literally get blown apart in a barrage of bullets, just absolutely satisfying and really shocking. Tarantino did a similar trick in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with that ending. At the time, like I said, you don't really expect this ending, and then you get it, and it's just so fucking satisfying. I absolutely love this film. Inglourious Bastards, 5-star masterpiece.
You and I saw it in the theater together for
We
the first
did.
time. Yeah. We had
We
that
did.
special Avatar screening beforehand back in the day.
Absolutely. Yes. Just one of the great movie going experiences of my life, honestly.
That's great. Awesome. All right. So my film rec, I kind of hinted at it earlier. I wasn't sure if you would pick it up on it, but I'm going to go with something both Nicholas Hoult and Zoe Kravitz worked on together, which is the legendary action movie Mad Max Fury Road. It's unbelievable. If you haven't seen this movie, it might be my favorite movie since like 2003 basically. It's really hard to top. Everything about this movie is visual, cinematic poetry and mastery of the craft. I'm trying not to be hyperbolic, but it's happening anyway. If you haven't seen Mad Max Fury Road, what have you been doing? This movie's incredible. Nicholas Hoult plays Nux, the war boy of Immortan Joe, which, if those words don't mean anything to you, this is more reason why you should watch it, because it's quite a story. And Zoe Kravitz plays one of Immortan's wives stolen away. It's a beautiful movie. It's action packed, and I really genuinely think that there will never be anything like this movie ever again, just because of how dangerous it was to do what they did. The unions will never let something like this happen, you know?
Probably not.
The acting unions, yeah. So Mad Max Fury Road is a perfect action movie, and they're both in it. I would love to talk about this movie as much as possible, so I'm definitely making this my recommendation.
I love it, Mike. Another absolute 5-star, one of the best films of the 21st century. I think for me, when I think about that movie, it's like pure visual storytelling. There's
Yes.
like such minimal dialogue, especially in the first half of the movie. I mean, there's literally like maybe one full paragraph of people speaking, just all action, just people, just telling the story in a very simple way. Beautiful example of that short period of minimalist cinema where the whole plot is get from one place to another and then back again. That's the plot.
Yeah.
But so much happens within that, and the action is just, to your point, you can't ever replicate how just stunning that was. And you shouted out Furiosa earlier. Great film. Felt a little bit like diminishing returns, but only in so much as this is an absolute classic of the action genre. Top 10 all time, I would say, in the action genre. I mean, it's just really one of the great films of the 21st century. So excellent recommendation.
I don't even know that you have to classify it with action films. It's just like one of the best movies ever made. It's just,
it's unbelievable.
It's a miracle that movie is.
George Miller, absolute god level. And on that note, we are at the end of another episode of Superhero Cinema Club. Thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate your support. Follow us on all the socials and all that to get even more content. We appreciate it. We will be back next week with an episode on X-Men Days of Future Past. Very excited to revisit this one. We'll talk about both the primary film as well as the Rogue Cut. Maybe watch the Rogue Cut if you haven't seen it. And join us again for another exciting adventure in the world of superhero cinema, Superhero Cinema Club.
Superhero Cinema Club is hosted by Mark Schiff and me, Mike Carnes. Produced by Mark Schiff. Editing by Mike Carnes. Original music provided by Chris Carnes. Find him on Spotify. Be sure to follow us on social media. You can find us at Superhero Cinema Club, and don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a review. Join us next time as we dive into another epic adventure from the world of superhero cinema.